listen up, because what I'm about to tell you is going to blow your mind. Every single day in Europe, inside just one slaughterhouse, more than 34,000 pigs are processed. That's right, 34,000. Imagine filling an entire football stadium, and then imagine every single seat taken not by people but by pigs, all processed in less than 24 hours. That's how massive this industry is. And guess what? That's only one facility. Multiply that by dozens, even hundreds of plants across the continent, and you start to realize this is one of the most insane, colossal food operations on Earth. Now here's the kicker. Germany, Europe's pork powerhouse, doesn't just raise pigs, it practically worships them. Pork is not just meat here, it's part of the culture, the festivals, the traditions, and the economy. And the shocking truth, more than 90% of that pork comes from industrial barns, giant indoor farms where pigs are raised with cutting-edge technology, automated feeding systems, and monitoring sensors everywhere. This isn't your grandpa's pigsty, this is a futuristic machine built to feed millions. Today, you and I are going to take a wild ride through that system. From the moment piglets are born in high-tech barns, to the second they hit the processing line in mega factories that run day and night without stopping. You're going to see sensors, robots, conveyor belts, chilling rooms, the size of warehouses, and a logistics chain so tight it looks like something straight out of NASA's playbook. And let me tell you, once you've seen this, you'll never look at a slice of bacon, a juicy bratwurst, or a piece of crispy pork belly the same way again. But wait, here's the big question I want you to think about while we dive into this insane world. Will machines one day replace humans entirely in farming and food production? That's not science fiction. With the scale you're about to see, it's a very real possibility, and I want your opinion on it in the comments by the end of this video. So let's kick it off. Imagine this, a barn the size of 10 football fields. Inside, thousands of pigs living under controlled temperature, automatic ventilation, and laser-precise feeding systems. Cameras are watching their every move. Sensors track their weight, their health, even the air quality they breathe. And every bit of this data is being sent to computers that run 24/7, making sure nothing goes wrong. That's not farming, that's farming 2.0, farming on steroids. Now, let's take it up a notch. At exactly 250 pounds, the target weight, these pigs are loaded into trucks. Not just any trucks. These are special climate-controlled transporters designed to carry around 100 pigs at a time. The floors are covered with sawdust to stop them from slipping. The air is filtered so they don't suffocate, and the drivers are trained to handle livestock with precision. It's like a first-class ticket, but the destination isn't paradise, it's the factory floor. And that's where the madness really begins. Because once those trucks arrive at the factory gates, everything kicks into overdrive. Within minutes, pigs are unloaded, stunned using high-tech methods like electric or CO2. Stunning, methods designed to be more humane than anything used in the past. And then the line starts moving. And once the line moves, it does not stop. Every second counts. Thousands of carcasses pass through cleaning, splitting, chilling, and inspection at lightning speed. Think about this. If one machine jams, if one inspection fails, the entire operation risks losing millions of dollars in just hours. The pressure is insane. Workers are stationed at every point, not just to keep the line moving, but to double-check safety, hygiene, and quality. And behind them, even more machines. X-ray scanners, smart cameras, robotic arms, all working in sync to make sure not a single bone shard or foreign object sneaks past. And when it's all done, the meat goes straight into freezing chambers that drop the temperature so fast bacteria doesn't stand a chance. From there, it's vacuum sealed, labelled, and shipped to supermarkets, restaurants and butchers all across Europe. Sounds insane already, right? And trust me, this is only scratching the surface. Because here's the truth. Behind this crazy machine is a question nobody can ignore. What's the cost? Not just the money, but the environmental cost, the ethical cost, the cost to communities, and to the future of farming. And here's why you need to keep watching. In the next parts, I'm going to show you not only how these farms and factories keep pork flowing to millions of dinner plates, but also how they fight environmental destruction, recycle billions of gallons of waste, and even transform pig manure into fertilizer worth billions. Yep, you heard me, billions. This isn't just a video about pigs. This is about one of the most advanced, most controversial, most powerful food industries in the world. And I promise you, by the end of this journey, you'll have a totally new perspective on that pork chop you throw in your frying pan. So buckle up, smash that like button if you haven't already, and let's dive headfirst into part 2, why pork rules Germany and Europe. Alright, let's talk about why pork isn't just food in Germany. It's practically a religion. And here's the insane part. If you're sitting at a German festival right now, enjoying a bratwurst hot off the grill, there's a 9 out of 10 chance that sausage didn't come from a free-range pig frolicking in the fields. Nope. It came from an industrial barn, part of one of the most powerful pork systems in the entire world. And this isn't just about meat, it's about culture. It's about history. It's about the backbone of German cuisine. Let's break it down. Step into a German street market, and you'll be hit with smells that will make your mouth water instantly. Sizzling bratwurst, smoky bacon, crispy pork knuckle. These aren't just dishes, they're cultural icons, and guess what? Pork dominates more than 50% of all meat consumption in Germany. Beef, chicken, they're big, sure, but pork is king. Bratwurst alone is legendary. This humble grilled sausage made of ground pork, lard and spices is basically the heartbeat of every Oktoberfest. Families pass down recipes. Chefs compete over the perfect spice mix. Tourists fly across the world just to take a bite. And the funny thing is, most people have no idea that behind every bratwurst is a supply chain involving thousands of pigs, robotic feeding systems and mega factories. Let's throw in some numbers. Pork production in Europe is so massive that in 2020, nearly 150 million pigs were raised across the continent. That's not 150 million servings of meat, that's 150 million entire animals. And Germany is one of the biggest players, pumping out pork like it's running a meat empire. Here's where it gets even crazier. Free-range pork sounds nice, right? Pigs running around in green fields, eating acorns. But in Germany, that's only a tiny slice. maybe 10% of the market. Industrial pork, that's the giant, and the difference is in the price. Free-range pork can cost 20 to 30% more. Industrial pork, thanks to scale, efficiency and automation, is much cheaper, somewhere between $2 to $2.50 per pound. Now, put yourself in the shoes of an average German family. You walk into the supermarket and you see 2 packs of bacon. One is 30% cheaper. Which one do you buy? The cheaper one, right? Multiply that decision by millions of shoppers and suddenly you understand why industrial pork absolutely rules the market. Bacon at breakfast, industrial pork, ham sandwiches for lunch, industrial pork, salami on pizza, pork chops for dinner, schnitzel, pork belly, pork ribs. Industrial pork is everywhere. Here's the shocking truth. Pork isn't just fueling daily meals, it's shaping entire industries. Meat processing plants, logistics companies, spice producers, packaging factories, all of them survive on pork. Remove industrial pork from Germany and half the food economy would collapse. But let's not forget the emotional side. In Germany, pork is more than calories, it's tradition. Families grill bratwurst in the summer, smoke ham in the winter, and serve pork roast during Christmas. Festivals wouldn't feel like festivals without pork sizzling on open flames. Pork dishes are written into songs, stories, and even tourist brochures. So when you eat pork in Germany, you're not just eating food, you're eating culture, history, and a piece of national identity. And guess who's making all that possible? Industrial pig farms, mega slaughterhouses, and endless supply chains. Now, here's the part where I need you to stop and think. Imagine this. You're holding a bratwurst at Oktoberfest. Would you still enjoy it if you knew it came from a factory that processes 34,000 pigs every single day? Drop your answer in the comments. Be honest. Because the truth is, whether you realise it or not, that's exactly what's happening. And it raises a huge question. Is industrial pork just a necessary reality to feed millions? Or is it a compromise we've all accepted without realising it? I want you to tell me what you think, because your opinion is part of this story. So here's the deal. Pork rules Germany and Europe because it's cheap. It's delicious, it's cultural, and it's everywhere. Industrial pork won. Free range is nice, but it's a niche. The machine is too big, too powerful, too efficient. But here's the thing, efficiency doesn't just happen by accident. Behind the scenes are some of the craziest, most futuristic farming systems you've ever seen. We're talking robotic feeding machines, smart sensors, and barns that look more like spaceships than farms. And in the next part, I'm going to take you inside the industrial pig barns, the heart of this empire, where technology rules, pigs grow at insane speed, and farming looks more like Silicon Valley than old McDonald's farm. So stick around, smash that like button, and let's dive headfirst into part 3, the crazy tech inside farms. Okay, buckle up, because what you're about to see doesn't look like farming anymore. It looks like something straight out of a science fiction movie. This is the world of industrial pig barns, massive complexes that can hold thousands of animals under one roof, powered by sensors, robots, and computers working 24/7. And I'm not exaggerating when I say this, these barns are designed more like high-tech factories than farms. Let me paint the picture for you. Imagine walking through sliding metal doors, and instead of hay and mud, you're hit with the sound of machines humming, the air-conditioned breeze of ventilators, and rows upon rows of pigs, each one carefully monitored. Overhead, there are cameras scanning every pen, sending live video feeds to a control room. On the walls, sensors constantly check the air quality, measuring carbon dioxide, ammonia, humidity, even the exact temperature. Why? Because one small shift could make thousands of pigs sick. And then there's the feeding system. Forget farmers carrying buckets. Nope. Robotic feeders run on tracks above the pens, delivering precise rations of feed directly into each trough. The system knows exactly how much each pig should eat based on weight, age, and health data. It's like Uber Eats, but for pigs, and it never, ever messes up your order. Now, here's the insane part. All of this information, pig weight, feeding schedules, water consumption, air conditions, is streamed to a central computer. Farmers can literally monitor their pigs on a smartphone from anywhere in the world. In the past, a farmer might walk into a barn and say, that pig looks sick. Today, a smart collar or implanted chip can send an alert the second a pig shows abnormal movement or reduced feeding. One cough in a barn of 5,000 pigs? The system flags it instantly. That's how advanced this is. And let me throw in a number that will blow your mind. Europe has nearly 150 million pigs under production. Imagine trying to manage that without tech. Impossible. With sensors and smart software, farmers know exactly how to keep those animals healthy and growing as fast as possible. This is farming on a scale the world has never seen before, and it raises a big question. Are these barns farms, or are they data centers disguised as farms? Now, let's get crazier. These barns aren't just monitored. They're engineered like airplanes. Ventilation systems? They don't just push air in and out. They calculate the optimal flow of oxygen to keep pigs comfortable. Climate control, industrial barns use heaters in the winter, cooling pads in the summer, and backup systems in case anything fails. If the temperature rises by just 2 degrees, an alarm goes off. That's how critical it is. Lighting, automated. Timed to simulate natural day-night cycles because science shows it makes pigs grow faster. Flooring, designed with just enough grip to stop slipping, but smooth enough to make cleaning easier. Even the water supply is rigged with meters that track how much pigs drink, because hydration levels are an early warning for disease. This isn't farming. This is engineering at a level that would impress NASA. Let's talk food. Pigs eat a lot, around 600 to 700 pounds of feed, before reaching slaughter weight. Multiply that by millions, and you get an industry that consumes millions of tons of grain every year. But here's where it gets wild. Feeding is automated down to the last gram. Feed mills mix corn, soy, wheat, and supplements, and then computer systems portion it out with military precision. If a pig gains weight too slowly, the formula gets adjusted. If a pig grows too fast, the system cuts calories to balance things out. Think about that. Each pig in a barn of thousands is basically on a personalised diet plan, controlled by machines. It's like Weight Watchers meets Terminator. And then there's the other side of eating, waste. Thousands of pigs produce tons of manure every single day. If you just dumped it, it would devastate rivers and farmland. So, industrial barns are fitted with underground channels that carry waste into giant storage tanks. Here's the insane part. The waste is treated, separated, and often turned into fertilizer. Some farms even convert it into biogas to power the farm itself. That's right. Pigs literally produce the energy to keep their own barns running. Talk about recycling. Now I've got to ask you something. Would you be okay eating pork if you knew it came from a barn where machines decide how much each pig eats, how much air they breathe, and when they sleep? Is this genius efficiency, or is it going too far? Drop your thoughts in the comments because I'm seriously curious where you stand on this. The craziest thing about all this tech is how fast it makes everything. In traditional farming, a pig might take 8 or 9 months to reach slaughter weight. In industrial barns with optimized diets, controlled climates, and zero wasted energy, pigs can hit market weight in as little as 5 to 6 months. That's shaving months off the clock, multiplied by millions of pigs. Time is money. And in this system, every single day saved means millions of dollars earned. So here's what we've seen so far. Barns that run on sensors, pigs on personalised feeding programs, climate control like a luxury hotel, and waste systems that literally power the farm. And remember, this isn't a rare experiment. This is how the majority of pigs in Europe are raised, which means almost every slice of bacon, every ham sandwich, every salami stick you eat is a product of this insane tech-driven system. But now it's time to see where all this leads, because raising pigs is just the beginning. The real madness happens when they leave the barn and enter the supply chain monster. Trucks, factories, and processing plants that run like clockwork. And let me warn you, once you see how this system moves thousands of pigs a day like chess pieces on a giant board, your jaw will drop. So get ready, smash that like button if this blew your mind, and let's roll into part 4, the supply chain monster. All right, you've seen the barns, you've seen the insane tech, but now we're stepping into something even bigger, the supply chain monster. This is the point where pigs hit market weight and the whole machine cranks into overdrive. We're talking trucks, factories, logistics, and processing lines so fast you won't believe they're real. This isn't farming anymore, this is meat on a global assembly line. Picture this. Inside the barn, pigs hit the magic number. Around 250 pounds, that's the sweet spot. Big enough to yield prime meat, small enough to process efficiently. But here's where it gets wild. Industrial farms don't just guess. They run pigs across high-tech weighing stations that log every single animal's weight automatically. And these aren't bathroom scales. These are stainless steel platforms built to handle thousands of pounds a day. The system records, sorts, and uploads the data straight to a central computer. Farmers know instantly, this pig is ready. That pig needs another week, 0 mistakes. When the numbers line up, boom, the supply chain monster wakes up. Trucks roll in, massive specialized livestock carriers. Each one can carry about 100 pigs in a single trip. And they're not just trucks, they're rolling climate-controlled barns, floors lined with sawdust, non-slip surfaces, ventilation systems pumping in fresh air, drivers trained like airline pilots because the cargo is alive, valuable, and fragile. Now, imagine this, hundreds of trucks moving day and night across Europe, each loaded with pigs, each heading for processing plants the size of small cities. It's like a highway built just for pork, and here's the crazy part. Every truck has to arrive on time. Too early and the factory gets jammed. too late and thousands of workers stand idle. The timing is so precise, it's basically a meat orchestra, and the trucks are the drummers keeping the beat. Would you dare ride in one of those trucks knowing exactly where it's headed? Now we pull up to the factory. This is where the supply chain monster shows its true scale. From the outside it looks like an airport terminal. From the inside, it's a maze of conveyors, cold rooms, and steel machines ready to handle tens of thousands of pigs per day. The second the trucks arrive, unloading begins. Workers, machines, and ramps move in sync. The pigs are guided into holding areas. Everything is choreographed down to the minute. One wrong move could create chaos, and in this world, chaos means millions lost. And remember, factories don't deal with hundreds of pigs. They deal with thousands per day. That's a small town's worth of animals flowing through a single building every 24 hours. Here's a stat that's going to shock you. Some plants in Europe and the US can process 34,500 pigs in a single day. That's nearly 1,500 every hour, 25 every single minute. Think about that. Before you even finish watching this video, hundreds of pigs will have gone through the line. And the supply chain doesn't stop. Trucks arrive in waves. Workers operate in shifts. Machines run around the clock. The line never shuts down, because if it does, the backlog builds instantly. Behind the scenes, the coordination is unreal. Farmers, transport companies, processing plants, and supermarkets are all linked in one giant chain. Orders are sent digitally. Transport routes are optimized. Even fuel consumption is tracked to the litre. And here's something insane. Some companies have control centres with giant screens, showing maps of every truck, every farm, every factory, like NASA Mission Control. But instead of rockets, it's pigs. Would you ever have guessed that your weekend bacon sandwich depended on a logistics network that looks like a military operation? So why all this intensity? Because meat is perishable. The second a pig leaves the barn, the clock starts ticking. Factories need to process fast, package faster, and ship even faster to supermarkets and restaurants. If one step breaks, if a truck breaks down, if a factory line stalls, if refrigeration fails, the chain collapses. And with millions of dollars at stake every day, failure is not an option. That's why the supply chain monster has been built to be unbreakable. Backup trucks, backup generators, backup factories, redundancy everywhere. Because pork isn't just food, it's business, and the stakes are enormous. Let me throw this at you. Would you trust a supply chain this massive with your food? Do you feel safer knowing everything is automated and precise, or more worried that it's all happening at such insane scale? Drop your take in the comments, because this is one of the biggest debates in food production today. So here's where we are. We've seen pigs hit weight. We've seen trucks haul them like cargo. We've seen factories gearing up like airports. And all of it is just the warm-up, because next we're stepping inside the beating heart of the machine, the slaughterhouse floor. This is where the real madness begins. Humane, stunning, robotic processing, chilling chambers, vacuum packaging, and it's all happening at speeds that will make your jaw drop. Get ready. Because once you see how tens of thousands of pigs are processed every day in one factory, you'll never forget it. So smash that like button, stay locked in, and let's dive into part 5. Inside the mega slaughterhouse. All right, you've seen the barns. You've seen the supply chain monster moving pigs like chess pieces across highways. But nothing, and I mean nothing, will prepare you for what's inside the slaughterhouse. This is the beating heart of the pork industry, the place where tens of thousands of pigs are transformed into the food that ends up on plates around the world. It's fast, it's brutal, it's high-tech, and it never stops. Imagine walking into a building the size of an airport terminal. Instead of passengers rushing for flights, you see pigs arriving by the truckload. Each truck backs up, ramps lower, and pigs march forward into holding pens. Everything moves with military precision. The air is cold, the floor is stainless steel, and the sound, a mix of machines humming, conveyor belts moving, and workers shouting over the roar. This is not chaos, it's choreography, and the tempo is insane. Remember this number, 34,500 pigs a day. That's what some mega plants handle. That's almost 1,500 every single hour, which means while you're watching this video, hundreds of pigs will pass through the system. Before processing begins, there's a step designed to make things more humane. Pigs are stunned, either with electricity or with CO2 gas chambers. It sounds harsh, but the goal is simple. Make sure the animals are unconscious before the main process begins. And here's the insane part. This happens on an industrial scale. Machines handle it automatically, reducing human error, speeding things up, and keeping the line moving. Workers monitor constantly because one mistake could create disaster. Would you dare stand in that room while it happens? Now the line kicks in. Pigs are moved onto conveyors and the factory becomes a blur of motion. Workers in protective gear, helmets, gloves, aprons, take positions along the line. Each one has a specific task, and each task has to be done in seconds. Cleaning and skin treatment. The carcasses are scrubbed and blasted with hot water. Rotary burners scorch the skin to remove hair. The split, a precise incision down the abdomen, organs removed, inspected and sorted. The backbone cut. The carcass is split into halves with machines so sharp they slice through bone like butter. And the entire time, inspectors are watching every carcass, every step, looking for signs of disease, contamination, or anything unusual. Once the first steps are complete, something critical happens. The chill room. Carcasses are wheeled into massive cold storage chambers. Temperatures drop fast. Why? Because bacteria can't multiply in the cold. Within hours, the body temperature drops and the meat stabilizes. This is one of the most important steps, the difference between safe pork and spoiled pork. Picture warehouse-sized freezers with rows of pig halves hanging on steel hooks. It looks like a scene from a movie, but this is reality. Now it's time for technology to flex. Once the carcasses are chilled, smart machines take over. X-ray scanners look for foreign objects. Robotic arms slice meat into perfect portions. Smart cameras check every piece for defects. If a bone fragment is detected, the system kicks the piece out instantly. No hesitation, no excuses. The speed is ridiculous. Machines can slice, scan, and package faster than any human could. But humans are still there, inspecting, monitoring, double-checking. Because in this world, safety is everything. Would you trust a machine to decide if your food is safe? The final stage, packaging. Meat is portioned, legs, shoulders, ribs, belly, you name it. Each piece is disinfected, weighed, and sent down the line. Then comes the vacuum sealer. Plastic wraps suck tight around each portion, locking out air, sealing in freshness. Labels are slapped on with barcodes, tracking info and expiration dates. And just like that, What was once a pig walking in a barn hours ago is now a product ready for the supermarket shelf. From farm to factory to fridge, all in a matter of days. Let's pause and think about this. A single factory can handle nearly 7% of America's slaughter capacity in just one day. Multiply that by dozens of factories across Europe, and you're looking at an industry moving millions of pigs every week. The scale is so massive it's hard to wrap your head around. It's like an invisible machine running behind the scenes, making sure the world's demand for pork never slows down. But here's the dark side. When you process animals at this speed and volume, risks skyrocket. Food safety, worker safety, environmental impact. One slip-up can have massive consequences. That's why these factories invest millions into monitoring, waste treatment, and backup systems. Still, critics ask, can you ever really guarantee safety at such scale? And that's where I turn it back to you. If you knew your pork chop came from a factory moving this fast, would you still eat it? Or would you demand smaller, slower, safer systems? Drop your answer below. Because honestly, this is one of the most important questions about the future of food. So far, we've seen barns powered by tech, supply chains that run like war operations, and slaughterhouses that never sleep. But now we need to talk about something bigger than pork, the environment. Because when you're dealing with millions of animals, you're also dealing with millions of gallons of waste, rivers of wastewater, and mountains of manure. And if you think the slaughterhouse floor was intense, wait until you see the systems built to handle all that. So stay tuned, smash that like button, and let's head into part 6, the environmental showdown. We've seen the barns, we've seen the trucks, we've seen the mega slaughterhouses. But now we're stepping into something even bigger than pork. We're stepping into a war with nature itself. Because when you raise millions of pigs, you're not just producing meat, you're producing mountains of waste, rivers of wastewater, entire lakes of manure. And if you don't handle it right, it's game over for the environment. Picture this, a single industrial farm with tens of thousands of pigs. Every day those animals produce tons of manure and wastewater. Multiply that by millions of pigs across Europe, and you've got a tidal wave of waste crashing down on the environment. And here's the scary part, if this stuff isn't treated properly, it doesn't just stink, it pollutes rivers. It poisons groundwater, it creates dead zones in lakes and oceans. Entire communities could suffer. This is the hidden cost of industrial farming, the cost that nobody talks about while they're chewing on bacon. So what do farms and factories do? They fight back with some of the most advanced waste systems in the world. Manure lagoons, giant underground or covered pools where waste is stored before treatment. Biogas plants, systems that capture methane from manure and turn it into energy. In some cases, farms literally run on pig poop power. Water recycling, factories treating wastewater so thoroughly they can cut fresh water usage by up to 40%. Think about that. The same water used to clean a slaughter line in the morning could be recycled, filtered and used again in the afternoon. That's insane efficiency. But critics ask, is it enough? Environmental activists argue that even with all this tech, industrial pig farming is a ticking time bomb. They point to cases of manure spills that poisoned rivers, or air pollution that sickened nearby residents. And here's a shocking fact. Livestock waste is one of the world's biggest sources of methane, a greenhouse gas that's dozens of times more powerful than carbon dioxide. Every burp, every fart, every lagoon of pig waste adds to the climate problem. So the question is, can technology ever truly balance the scale? Or is industrial farming simply too big to be green? On the other side, farmers and industry leaders say they're making progress. They argue that modern farms are cleaner than ever, that waste treatment plants, sensors and recycling systems are reducing pollution dramatically compared to the past. They also point out that without industrial farming, meat would be so expensive, most families couldn't afford it. So the trade-off is real. Affordable food versus environmental impact. Would you pay double for your pork if it meant cleaner rivers? Drop your answer below, because that's the choice the world might face. Here's something crazy. Some farms have turned waste into a secret weapon, energy. By capturing methane from manure, they create biogas that can power barns, trucks, even entire communities. In some regions, pig farms are actually selling electricity back to the grid. That means your bacon could literally help power your lights. It sounds insane, but it's real. Pig waste powering cities. Who would have thought? But let's zoom out. If industrial farming keeps growing, waste management becomes a never-ending battle. Bigger barns mean bigger lagoons. Bigger factories mean bigger treatment plants. One failure, one leak, and thousands of gallons of waste could flood into the environment. Villages, rivers, farmland, destroyed overnight. That's why this showdown matters. It's not just about pork, it's about whether we can feed millions without destroying the very planet we depend on. So let me throw this at you. Is it worth it? Would you rather have cheap pork on your plate, knowing it comes with hidden environmental costs? Or would you accept higher prices, smaller farms, and cleaner systems? This is one of the biggest moral questions of our time, and I want your voice in the comments. So here we are. We've seen the insane barns. We've ridden the supply chain monster. We've stepped into the mega slaughterhouse. And now we've faced the environmental showdown. But there's still one final question, the biggest question of them all. What's next? As technology gets smarter, as robots get faster, as AI takes over more and more of the process, will humans even be needed in this industry? Will future farms be run entirely by machines? That's where we're heading next. The big finale, the ultimate question. So smash that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and get ready for part 7, the future of pork. Will robots replace humans? We've travelled through barns the size of stadiums, We've seen supply chains that run like military operations. We've stepped into slaughterhouses processing thousands of pigs per hour. We've even stared down rivers of waste in the environmental showdown. But now comes the ultimate question: what's next? Look around the modern pig industry and you'll notice something. Machines are everywhere. Sensors track pigs' health. Robots deliver feed. Smart scanners inspect meat. Automated sealers package products at lightning speed. So let's ask the big one. Will there even be a place for humans in this system 20 years from now? Or will farming become 100% automated? Imagine barns run entirely by AI, cameras powered by machine learning analysing pig behaviour, drones flying overhead checking for problems, robots cleaning, feeding, and even assisting with veterinary care. Imagine slaughterhouses where robotic arms replace human butchers, where algorithms make every decision. It sounds like science fiction, but pieces of it are already happening. Now here's where it gets emotional. Farming used to be about family, tradition, passing down knowledge from generation to generation. But in the race for efficiency, machines are taking over. Workers who once relied on this industry for a living are being replaced by automation. On the flip side, automation means fewer mistakes, higher safety, and lower costs for consumers. It's a brutal trade-off: jobs versus progress, tradition versus technology. And that leaves us, the eaters, the consumers, with a choice to make. Think about it. The pork on your plate is cheaper and safer because of machines, but every slice of bacon carries questions. How much control should we give to technology? What happens to communities built on farming jobs? And most of all, are we okay with letting robots decide how our food is raised, processed, and delivered? This isn't just about pork anymore. It's about the future of food. Picture the year 2050. You walk into a supermarket. Every piece of meat on the shelf has been raised by AI, processed by robots, and shipped by self-driving trucks. Not a single human touched it from birth to packaging. Would you feel safer or terrified? Would you trust a machine with your dinner? And that's where you come in. I want you to comment right now. Do you believe robots will replace humans in farming? Should they? Or should we draw a line and keep people in the loop, no matter how advanced tech gets? This is your chance to be part of the conversation that's going to define the future of food. So let's rewind what we've seen on this insane journey. Barns that look like factories, trucks moving pigs like clockwork, slaughterhouses running faster than you can blink, waste turned into energy, and now the looming rise of automation that could change everything forever. The pork industry isn't just about food, it's about technology, survival, and the balance between feeding billions and protecting our world. And whether you're excited or terrified, one thing's for sure: the future is coming fast. So here's what I need you to do. Smash that like button if this video opened your eyes. Share it with your friends so they see what's really happening behind their food. And most importantly, drop a comment. Will robots replace humans in farming? And is that a good thing? Because this isn't just entertainment. This is a conversation that affects all of us. And your voice matters. Thank you for sticking with me through this wild ride. You've just seen one of the biggest, craziest, most intense systems on planet Earth, the industrial pork industry. And trust me, this is only the beginning.